I was going through my library of games to see which survival horror should I play next, and to my surprise I found a game called White Knight, which I had purchased a long time ago but I never got around to play it. Since my last video was about a game called White Day, it was only fair that my next video should be about a game called White Knight. I played it not knowing what to expect, and to my surprise, I may have found a gem that a lot of people don't know of. So without further ado, here it is my opinion on White Knight. White Knight came out in 2015 on Steam and was ported over to home consoles later on. For this video, I played the game on PS4, and the footage you will see in the video have been captured using the console's internal gameplay recorder. Yeah, I know creating videos on a budget is a bit of a pain. The game is developed by a French indie game studio called Awesome, I hope I got that right, and was published by Activision. And I don't know about anyone else, but every time I hear EA or Activision, my hand automatically reaches out to my credit card because I know on a subconscious level there will be microtransactions involved. Thankfully, White Knight has none of that nonsense. It's a self-contained experience developed to tell you a story and take you on a journey through the night, so you can put your credit card back in your wallet. Now before I start talking about the game, I need to talk about the story because I feel the story played a huge role in the game, but I cannot talk about the story and how it impacted me as a player without discussing some plot points which can be considered spoilers. So if you don't want to be spoiled, jump to the timestamp shown on the screen now. You have been warned. White Knight opens with our nameless protagonist leaving a bar. He's obviously had a few drinks and decides to drive home. Of course, that turns out to be his first mistake of the night as he almost hits a woman on the road. He swerves out of control and crashes his car. Hurt, bruised, clearly shaken from the crash that also resulted in slight memory loss, our nameless protagonist makes his way to a house nearby hoping to get some help.
I was trying to collect my thoughts, but the intense pain was scattering them like a bunch of dead birds. My fear of being wounded changed into an obsession. Was I about to die?
That was his second mistake of the night. Turns out the house has a few secrets of its own, and there are ghostly apparitions wandering around. In the darkness of the house, our nameless protagonist sees a bright aura of a ghost named Selena, and immediately the game story establishes that connection between the player and this Selena character, where everything in the house is sad and miserable, filled with secrets that are not meant to be discovered, apparitions that are trying to kill you. You see this woman named Selena who is obviously a ghost, but she's trying to help you. And it becomes quite obvious that she needs help too. Her ghost wants you to discover what happened to her, and that is the entire journey of White Knight as you try to discover who Selena is, what happened to her, and how the nameless protagonist fits into all of this. There are cutscenes in the game that shows the bond forming between the protagonist and the feelings he's developing for Selena. Aside from that, there are different notes and diaries you can collect in the game that reveal the sordid past of the family that once lived in the house. You will uncover the truth about a man called William Vesper who lived there and how he murdered different women in the house. And I must say, it would have been so much easier for the developers to just say that, yeah, there was a man named William Vesper who lived here, he lost his marbles and decided to turn into a serial killer. But the developers really put some thought behind William Vesper's origins. As you pick up notes and diaries in the game, you will learn about his bloodline, the evil that flowed through William Vesper's mother and how she tormented him even after his death, and how he descended into madness that made him a serial killer. It was all dark shit and I loved it, because not only I was learning about the killer, I kind of sympathized with him. There are apparitions in the house trying to kill me, the player, so I can only imagine what William Vesper went through when he was just a child. As I drew closer to the end, I discovered what happened to Selena, what she went through and how she was murdered.
Selena fled men, just like William, the so-called Black Lake Wolf, had fled his mother.
I set off to face William Vesper, the monster, the wolf responsible for all of this, and this is where the game reveals that I have been playing as William Vesper all this time. I am the serial killer, the wolf that ensnared everything that came close to it. I was responsible for Selena's death, the woman who has been trying to help me through the night. I was responsible for her death.
And so it was me. And I had killed her. I had killed the only beautiful thing in the world. The only one which could save me. I'm sorry. It was me all along, Selena. The son of a bitch. The sicko. The killer. The wolf. The filth. The bastard. The scum. Oh, you should have let your mother kill you. You should have undone what she did. You knew, and yet you let me have a second chance, Selena. Let me go on till the end.
I have to say, I was a bit disappointed. I wasn't disappointed because of the turn the story took. I was disappointed because I kind of predicted it. I have played too many survival horror games and I have seen way too many psychological horror movies to see where the story was going. And it's not like the developers tried to hide it either. There were obvious clues throughout the game, like a jigsaw puzzle that I had to piece together. For example, you get to learn about Selena, how she turned into a jazz singer and the places she performed at. One of the clubs she sang at was called Smokes and Mirrors. The matchbox that I carried in my inventory is called Smokes and Mirrors. Also, Smokes and Mirrors clearly conveys the message that not everything is what it seems. There are many clues like these ones throughout the game that made me predict the end. Nevertheless, I still found it heartwarming to see William come to a realization what he has done. You see, unlike other women that William killed in the house, he actually had feelings for Selena. He loved her. You can even say he was obsessed with her. And Selena loved him too. She was pregnant with William's child, but unfortunately she was forced to lose the baby. Maybe William did not want his child to inherit the same evil he inherited from his parents, something I learned about when I picked up the diaries and notes throughout the game. And Selena, because she loved William, wanted to help him one last time after she died. So yeah, you can probably tell by now that I loved the story. A bit predictable, which was probably intentional by the developers, but it was still an emotional ride that never let go. Now I want to talk about the art style of the game because that is probably the game's biggest selling point. Set in the 1930s when America was still reeling from the effects of the Great Depression, the game uses a black and white color scheme to match the tone of that era. And it works. Not only that, it helps White Knight stand out from the crowd. You have some amazing third-person horror games like The Evil Within and Resident Evil games. But on the other hand, you have White Knight. One look at that game and you can tell it is trying to be different. The art style makes it stand apart from the competition. And it's not really that graphically demanding either. On my PS4, I think it took a little more than 2 GB of storage space. It's not about the graphics, it's the art style that evokes that film noir tone. We live in a day and age where game developers seem to be more focused on creating a flashy and graphically impressive game. And here we have White Knight, a game that is more focused on bringing the aesthetics of 1930s to life with its art style and soundtrack. Soundtrack also deserves a notable mention here because I thought it was pretty good. Whether it is the songs you play on the gramophone to solve puzzles, the piano theme, or the main menu soundtrack, I thought it did its intended job. You can tell the developers paid close attention to the soundtrack as you scroll through the options on the main menu and hear different keystrokes of a piano as you navigate. The voiceover was pretty good. I especially liked how the main character narrated his feelings and thoughts akin to movies like Sin City. The main character is voiced by Philip Anthony Rodriguez, and I have to say he did a pretty good job in setting the mood of the game. The woman who voiced Selena, I don't know who she is because there seems to be no information about her, also did a pretty good job. Now this is a third-person survivor horror game, so I need to talk about the animation here for a bit. It is developed by an indie studio, so I wasn't really expecting much in that department, but to my surprise the game has some amazing animations for the main character. In the start of the game you can clearly see he is hurt. Leave him idle for a moment and you can see him look around like a real person stuck in a house where death lingers everywhere. What surprised me the most was how the character reacted to threats around him. Stand in the dark for too long and you will see the character panicking. Get chased by an apparition and you will see the character getting scared. It's little touches like these that really humanize the main character. And once again, I was not expecting that from an indie studio because you hardly see something like that from a AAA game studio. I think it's time I talk about the gameplay because that's what matters. The gameplay of White Knight is quite simple. You walk around solving puzzles while avoiding the apparitions in the house. There is no combat in the game and the only way to defeat these apparitions is with electric light. Light plays a huge role in the game. Since it was dark in the game world, I had to rely on my matchsticks to help me navigate through. Without them, I couldn't interact with any object in the environment. Not just that, the main character could not stand in the darkness of the house at all. If I stood in the dark, the main character would be overwhelmed and will just die. Apparently there is something strange about the darkness in that house, and if you're familiar with the story, you would know why that is. I was limited to carry up to 12 matchsticks at any given moment, but if I was ever running low, I could always top up using matchboxes placed conveniently throughout the house, so that's not an issue. But aside from matchsticks, I had to rely on electric light because that is the only thing that could destroy the apparitions. I had to switch on lamps, find and place bulbs, follow electric cables to plug sockets so I could turn the lights on. When I was not looking for light switches, I was looking for objects that would trigger some sort of reaction from Selena or unlock a piece of her memory. And these are the kind of puzzles that I had to solve throughout the game, but surprisingly, I never got the feeling that I was doing the same thing over and over again. There was variety in the presentation of those puzzles. At one point I was looking for a bulb to place in a lamp so I could get rid of an apparition that's blocking my way. The other moment I was looking for a disc to play on a gramophone that would bring Selena out so she could guide me to the next part of the story. When I completed a puzzle, I unlocked a new section in the house that I could explore. It gave me a sense of progression, like I was moving forward. There is some level of backtracking, but it's not much. The developers knew what not to do in this game. It's like they looked at other survival horror games and thought, hey, you know what? Let's not drag this game any longer than we are supposed to, so how about we keep backtracking to a minimum? which obviously affected the length of the game. There are 6 chapters in the game, chapter 2 being the longest and chapter 6 being the shortest. You know, there's a saying, less is more. It is true for this game because I never got the feeling that the game was dragging itself. That's why the puzzles didn't feel repetitive. The story was paced perfectly. There was not a lot of backtracking, and that is partly because of the length. And that's something only a few developers managed to get it right. At the end of the day, you are playing a mystery game with a protagonist who is stuck in a haunted house. They couldn't drag that out. They opted for a shorter, tighter experience rather than a longer, frustrating one. And I think they really nailed it because you can finish the game in one sitting in a couple of hours. But speaking of frustrations, White Knight is not a perfect game, and now I will be talking about its issues. Mainly the developer's choice of fixed camera angles. Fixed camera angles were made famous with earlier Resident Evil games, and in those games I found myself getting a bit too close for comfort with zombies thanks to the awkward camera angles. If I ever got too close to a zombie in Resident Evil games, I had one of 2 options. Take the bite and heal myself later, or fight them off with my equipped weapon. Since White Knight uses fixed camera angles like Resident Evil, it inherited those issues as well, but somehow managed to make it worse. You see, the apparitions in White Knight will not hurt you if you run into them. They will kill you instantly. It's not like Resident Evil where if you take damage from these apparitions you can heal yourself later. No, it's game over. I lost count of the amount of times I found myself running into the flailing arms of an apparition because I didn't see it thanks to the camera angle. At one point I was feeling like I was playing a noir version of Dark Souls because I was dying so many times. I felt like I was being cheated out because it was out of my hands. If I managed to avoid one apparition by running past it, I ran into another one because I saw it too late because of the camera angle. And I can understand that it raised the stakes for me as a player. It also meant that I was dying a lot. Sometimes I just run around in a room just so I can have those apparitions chase me. It resulted in me dying, but it gave me an idea of where the apparitions were and how I could plan my route so I could avoid them. Those kind of sections are few and far in between, and there are not many of them to be honest, but trust me, they can be annoying. Another issue I have with the game is the lack of replayability. Once I finish the game, there is no reason for me to go back. Yes, I can replay it to collect any journal or diary I missed, or I can try and get those PlayStation trophies, but aside from those, there's no reason for me to play the game again. So what is my honest opinion of White Knight? Well, I personally think it is one of those hidden gems in gaming that very few people know of. True, it's not perfect, but you can appreciate the developer's love for the project and the attention to detail they put in the story, the art style, the atmosphere, and the soundtrack of the game. Yes, the fixed camera angles can be an issue, but I feel the developers chose fixed cameras because of their love for a game series that started the survival horror genre, Resident Evil. I would recommend this game to anyone who loves survival horror games. It is available on Steam for £11.39, but it was reduced to £3.41 during the Black Friday sale. £11 may be a bit too much for a game that you may never return to, but keep an eye out when the game goes on sale. For £3.31, it is a bargain. Surprisingly, even though I played the game on PS4, it seems like the game has been taken off from PlayStation Store. I managed to download it because I purchased it long ago, but it seems like the game is no longer available to purchase on PlayStation Store. Not sure about Xbox either, so I guess Steam is the only platform to play this game on. Thanks for checking out this video guys, I really appreciate it. I'm a part-time YouTuber who's trying to go full-time, so your engagement with the video will help me a lot. Don't forget to subscribe if you want to see more. Peace out people and stay awesome.